Through the rest of Monday evening, we continue to see those showers across much of England and Wales, generally confined to eastern areas, and the rain eventually clearing the far north too. But plenty more unsettled weather is on the way as we head through the rest of this week, with further rain on Wednesday or Thursday, although temperatures on the downtrend by the end of the week.
Today's outlook: cool, calm and completely horizontal. Boxed Aircon sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom at 6 o'clock. Israel is to halt the supply of aid into Gaza after accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire. The military says it has carried out airstrikes on Gaza after repeated attacks on its troops by Hamas, but the group claims it remains committed to the peace agreement and is working to locate and return the remaining deceased hostages. Daylight robbery at one of the world's most famous museums. Priceless jewellery has been stolen from the Louvre in Paris. It's understood 3 or 4 masked men broke into the Apollo Gallery containing what remains of the French crown jewels. French Interior Minister Laurent Nunez says thieves escaped with 9 pieces from the Napoleon and the Empress collection that are of incalculable value. One item has since been found near the scene of the heist. The Metropolitan Police says it's actively looking into a claim that Prince Andrew asked a close protection officer to investigate Virginia Giuffre before she accused him of sexual abuse. 2 newspapers are reporting that he asked his bodyguard to dig up dirt for a smear campaign shortly before a photograph of the pair with Ghislaine Maxwell was published in 2011. Andrew gave up his remaining royal titles and honours on Friday over his association with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew denies all the allegations against him. The Home Office has returned 16 illegal migrants to France under the one-in, one-out return scheme in the past week. It's taken the total of returns under the deal to 42. That figure pales in comparison to the more than 36,000 who've crossed so far this year. More flights are expected to take place in the coming weeks. The government is promising to create 400,000 new jobs by the end of the decade by training and recruiting workers for the clean energy sector. Ministers say plumbers, electricians and welders are among the occupations in demand, and that North Sea oil and gas workers will be able to access support to help them transition into the sector. And hundreds have turned out for the funeral of the cricket umpire Dickie Bird in his hometown of Barnsley. He died last month at the age of 92. Former England and Yorkshire cricketer Sir Geoffrey Boycott read out his eulogy for his friend of almost 70 years, describing him as refreshingly different, eccentric but fair, and said it would be hard to find anyone who didn't like him.
Dickie was undoubtedly a man of the people. He loved talking to anybody. And he was always the same. From royalty to politicians to superstars to everyone in Barnsley Market, Dickie was a national and Yorkshire treasure. What you saw is what you got.
Those are your latest headlines. I'll have more for you at 7 o'clock.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Welcome back. The Labour MP for Basingstoke, Luke Murphy, joins me now. Mr Murphy, thank you very much for joining me. I'm glad you can see sense and speak to GB News, even though Ed Miliband is unwilling to. Let's get straight stuck in then to this situation involving these Maccabi Tel Aviv fans not being able to go to Villa Park for this match. The Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said he has done everything in his power to keep Jews safe in the UK, and yet they're not safe, are they? Because they can't go to a football match.
Well, I'm clear and the government is clear. And, well, firstly, thank you for having me on this morning.
Thank you.
I'm clear and the government is clear that they want these fans to be able to attend the football match. No one, I think, would want to see a situation where fans of either side, of any background, not being able to attend a football match. So we do need to see a way through to ensure that the police are able to provide them with the safety so they can go ahead and see their football team play, just as many fans do across the country over the weekend and midweek as well. We should be clear, this was an operational decision, and I can't say that I'm aware of all the factors that have gone into that decision, but what the government is doing is working, my understanding is working with the police to ensure that it does have the support to provide that protection. Everyone should have the ability, we should have the policing resources and support to ensure that everyone is safe, is both safe on the streets and and also able to see their football team play as well. I'm really clear, I want them to go ahead and be able to watch their football team play.
Yes. Do you think it is all about safety when it comes to some of the pro-Gaza MPs that have lobbied for this? Zara Sultana of your party, if it is called your party, we're still not quite clear on that, has basically said this is about, for her, the idea of banning Israelis from all football matches. She's lobbying UEFA to ban any Israeli team from football matches. That's got nothing to do with safety, has it, Luke Murphy?
Yeah, and I think she's wrong. And for those viewers at home that don't know, your party is the name of her party rather than...
sorry, I mean that, yes.
No.
party?
It's a very confusing political name for a political party. Let's be honest. And I think she's wrong. I think she's totally wrong. And I've seen some of the other statements, and I think they are totally wrong as well. This was a purely, from what I understand, operational decision around safety. The government is now providing the support to ensure that the fans, and I want to see that decision reversed and changed, hopefully as early as possible this week, so those fans are able to see them. I think Zara and the other MPs who've made those statements are completely wrong.
Also, we now discover, according to the Mail on Sunday, that the West Midlands Police relied upon a report that was written by somebody who was once a member of Hezbollah and who posed with an AK-47. How worried are you about sectarianism? It's already in our politics. We've already got a number of pro-Gaza independents who actually unseated a number of your colleagues, one of whom we're going to speak to, because we're going to speak later on to Khalid Mahmood, who was the MP for Birmingham Parry Bar for 23 years. Sectarianism in politics, which is leading to this racial tension, as far as I can tell, between Muslims and Jews in the UK, is really worrying, isn't it, Mr. Murphy?
I'm very worried about the divisive path that some of our politics is going down, whether that's hate against Jewish people and anti-Semitism or anti-Muslim hate as well. I think we have, and always have had, a really strongly diverse nation that has always welcomed people from all backgrounds, and I think it is a worrying path to go down where you see on the extremes using this kind of divisive language to cause fear and cause hate, and I think it's wrong. And I think we have a task, all politicians actually, of all political parties. This isn't just about the government, though the government obviously plays an absolutely key role in doing this, in rebuilding those kind of common bonds. You know, we've heard the saying, we all have more in common. I do truly believe that, and we all need to work doubly hard to ensure that we can work together with whatever faith you are, whatever background you're from. So yes, we have disagreements in politics, but not to foster that kind of division that can lead to hate and roads that I don't think this country or the majority of people want to go down.
Let's move on to economic matters. There's a story on the front of the Sunday Telegraph which will be music to the ears of your Basingstoke constituents, I'm sure, Luke Murphy, and that's that Tony Blair is urging Rachel Reeves to slash the 40p tax rate. Now, I don't think she's going to do it, but wouldn't it be great for the people of Basingstoke for them to pay less tax, not more, come November the 26th?
Well, I think what my constituents are worried about, and I hear it on the door week in, week out. I had several conversations last weekend with several constituents about the cost of living and the pressures that they're facing, whether it's with energy prices or food prices or anything else. And similar this weekend. But this government, what I want to see in the budget, and I know what Rachel and the government are focused on, is easing that cost of living and getting growth back in our economy. We are only going to be able to have the investment in the public services that we all rely on and that we need, invest in the security to protect our country and to ensure that people have more money in their pockets if we get growth in the economy. And that is what Rachel Reeves was on.
You can't possibly be advocating tax rises, Luke Murphy, when you won your seat in Basingstoke with a promise in the manifesto that taxes wouldn't rise for working people. You can't
I'm certainly
possibly...
not advocating.
So she mustn't put up tax, must she?
I want to see, and I know that the government is steadfast in those commitments in the manifesto to ensure that there's no increase in VAT, there's no increase in income tax or national insurance on working people and on my constituents. What I don't support, because I've heard several calls from the Conservatives, the Lib Dems and Reform to cancel our the national insurance increase that was made last year, to cancel a whole load of other taxes, and then to go further to have tens of billions of pounds of cuts in spending, as well as unfunded tax cuts like scrapping stamp duty. That is a path to a higher cost of living for my constituents.
It depends on you.
It is unfunded tax cuts that led to interest rates rising.
It does depend on your definition of a working person. Am I a working person?
Well, the working people, the people that go out to work and make most of their money through work rather than from capital.
So you're ruling out a working person like me You're saying that I won't be taxed more on November the 26th? Because we've got all sorts of suggestions, taxes on our properties, reapportioning of council tax bans, NI contributions for people who have second properties. We might have a change to the cash ISA. I mean, most working people, if they're lucky, have got a little bit of savings in a cash ISA. That might not be as tax efficient anymore under Rachel Reeves. How can you dress this up as anything other than a tax on working people?
Well, the fundamental commitment in the manifesto was around VAT, national insurance, and income tax. You know, what Rachel Reeves will do in the budget and what the government is seeking to do is to ensure that we have growth in the economy, that we provide the investment that our public services need. One of the things and one of the reasons I was elected in the general election was because our National Health Service did not have the funding that it needed. People couldn't see a GP, they couldn't get the hospital appointment. We're beginning to turn that around. Of course, this government absolutely wants to see people have more money in their pocket. And that is an absolutely central tenet of what this government is trying to achieve. But we will not do things that undermine the stability in our economy or make unfunded commitments, which previous governments have done and all of the opposition parties are now doing. And while that's a difficult choice, if you have an unfunded tax cut that you cannot pay for, that undermines the economy and will lead to increase in interest rates, which is we saw had a massive impact on my constituents over the last few years.
All right. Luke Murphy, we're running out of time, so I just need a yes-no answer to the following two questions. Knowing what we now know about Chinese spying, should the super embassy in London go ahead? Yes or no?
Well, you tempt me with a yes or no question. It's absolutely right. The government must consider the security implications of the embassy, and I know the government will be considering that.
All right. If Keir Starmer is found to have misled the Commons, as Kemi Badenoch has suggested, he'll have to resign, won't he?
I don't believe that he has. I think it's really clear the China situation that I set out, it was an independent decision made by the CPS, and Kemi Badenoch has questions to answer. When she was asked at the time of the case, she said, she was asked, is China an enemy? She said it's a challenge. Asked whether it was a security threat, she said they're a challenge. This is all about the Conservatives' policy about China at the time, which they are now trying to rewrite.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
In most cases, adoption is really great. We've got an amazing adoption system here in the UK with really fantastic charities. We've seen about 1 in 20 dogs being adopted. Lots of people during COVID went out and bought lots of dogs. We had a huge increase in the dog population. And then those people went back to work and some of them couldn't care for their dogs anymore. So the dog charities are literally chock-a-block. They're all fully booked up with their spaces. When you go and see that dog, I think you can get a feeling yourself of, you know, how that dog is with you, that instant love and affection that you get from that dog. So use your heart. And save a dog.
And also take the advice, I think, of the people at the rescue centre. There was one that I really fancied because it was prettier than the one that they were recommending to me. And I said, oh, no, what?
Shallow.
That one. And they said, no, you're a first-time owner. That dog is not for you. That dog is a very high-maintenance dog, needs a very, very experienced owner. And they gave me the right one.
It's just coming up to the Christmas period where people make emotional decisions about pets for a family.
A dog is not just for Christmas, it's for life. And it's a lifelong commitment. You know, dogs are with us and some of them are needy and some of them are more independent. If you give your dogs lots of love, you exercise them well, you feed them well, You're able to leave them for, short periods of time. But if you are at work for 8-10 hours a day, it's just too long to leave a dog for. So, really keep that in mind that, is that dog going to work for you in your life? Saying that, dogs bring you so much. They're going to make you live longer. They're going to, they're so good for you sort of health-wise. They're going to take you out for a walk every day. They're going to take you out in nature.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now joining me is Shadow Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho. Lovely to see you this morning, Ms Coutinho. Let's talk about our sky-high energy bills. Now, we've had energy bosses saying that net zero will continue to add up to £300 to household bills by the end of this Parliament. And I'm starting to think, I don't know what you think, that because of the failure of successive governments on this issue, that we must just make ourselves immune to the idea of paying the highest energy costs in Europe.
Well, here's the problem. The Climate Change Act is forcing ministers to prioritise decarbonisation above everything else, including lowering bills. And that's a massive problem for the country, because at the moment we have some of the cleanest electricity in the world, but it's also the most expensive. So we've been very clear. I acknowledge in the past that we signed up to legislation. Obviously, when I was in government, I started a reset, and Kemi Badenoch had spoken up before. But we have to go further. We have to repeal the Climate Change Act. We have to put cheaper energy first. And actually what you've seen from us in the last couple of weeks is I've set out a cheap power plan that would cut everybody's electricity bills by 20% instantly. That's something that ministers could do tomorrow, and it would deal with the most important problem that we've got in energy policy, which is that we've got the highest electricity prices in the world.
I understand this whole argument that you're under new management and things have changed and all the rest of it, and I do respect that. You did once tweet, "We are fully committed to net zero by 2050, and then we look at the history of high standing charges and also very heavy green levies that have added to our bills. Net zero was made legally binding by Theresa May. Boris Johnson then introduced the memorandum on fracking. We then had, before that, David Cameron hugging Huskies, coming out with his coal phase-out policy. We've had huge amounts of green levies placed on our bills. So it's all very well saying this now, but the GB News audience will rightly blame the Tories for part of this mess that we now find ourselves in. That is a fair criticism, isn't it?
Well, look, I don't deny the party's been on a journey. What I will say is that when that legislation was passed by Theresa May, I wasn't in Parliament then, but Kemi Badenoch was one of two people in the entirety of Parliament who spoke up and said, I'm worried about costs. When I came in to be Energy Secretary, you mentioned that tweet, but that's also in the context of me being the first person in that job to push back bans on consumers, on their cars and their boilers, to say I was very worried about costs. And actually, I was being sued by multiple climate change activists for the changes I made. So you can argue that we didn't go far enough in government, but certainly what I did at the time was controversial. And actually what's happened since then is the cost of energy work I started in the department to look at the true cost of renewables has been cancelled by Ed Miliband, and he has been promising people that he will cut their bills by £300, and we just know that is not true. In fact,
is
I
that
think
a lie?
you mentioned
Is it
energy
actually
bosses
a
this
lie?
week said it's a barefaced lie. There is no evidence that he's ever published to stack up that claim. It is a barefaced lie. And actually what energy bosses said just this week in Parliament is that even if gas was free, people's energy bills will go up because of all of the extra costs in Ed's plans. Now, that's just not right. We know people are struggling, and we know that they're particularly struggling with energy bills. So that's why our plan would cut people's electricity bills by 20%. And like I said, the government could do that tomorrow.
OK. I mean, where do you now stand on fossil fuels? Because, again, I refer back to David Cameron and others. There was this Tory project to phase out fossil fuels. You're now beginning to regret that. You've been very critical of Miliband cancelling those new licences for North Sea oil and gas. We're now apparently at the kind of precipice of an AI revolution. That's going to need to be fuelled literally by a huge amount of fossil fuels for it to maintain the aspirations of the current government. So where are we? Are you now in the kind of zone of drill, baby, drill?
Well, firstly, I was like that in government. I was the person legislating to protect North Sea oil and gas licences and was very clear that I thought the North Sea was important because we're going to need oil and gas for decades. I was also the person in government who said we need to build gas power plants, and I particularly mentioned AI and the needs of that energy sector. Now, that was a speech and a position that, you know, within the civil service I was told not to take because it would make me a pariah, and I made it anyway because the truth is this: we can either be a poor country with very high electricity prices who won't have affected climate change because these AI businesses will just set up somewhere else in the world, or we can grip the problem that we have, which is very, very high energy prices, and we can make sure that businesses can start here, that we can have jobs, and that people's bills can come down.
Will the Tories advocate fracking?
So I don't think it should be imposed on communities, and I think the priority has to be the North Sea. But what we've said when it comes to gas is that, yes, there would be more gas in the system than under Ed's approach if it made people's bills lower. And we know at the moment, gas without a carbon tax is £55. He's signing up to a new wind auction. He said he's willing to pay up to £117 for 20-year fixed contracts for offshore wind. What he hasn't explained to anyone is what are these higher prices, which will be locked into for decades. How on earth can that cut bills? It simply doesn't make sense. So our priority for energy is use what's cheap. We've got to bring the cost of electricity down, and the priority has to be to do that as quickly as possible.
We would put all this to Ed Miliband, by the way, but he refuses to do my show for some reason. I can't think why. What's your analysis of the Chinese spying scandal in the context of Miliband's energy policy? Because, of course, Labour have come under heavy scrutiny because of the use of wind turbines, electric vehicles and solar panels, which all require components from China. Serious concerns raised by your colleague Ian Duncan-Smith and others about the use of slave labour to make those parts that we're all apparently adopting over here to be more progressive. Is there a link to the Chinese spying scandal in Miliband's relationship with Beijing?
Well, firstly, let me say this. Keir Starmer said that there was no political involvement, but if you look at the text, there's lines that have been lifted from the Labour manifesto. So either he's misled the House, or something which is possibly even worse still, everybody knew about this and politicians didn't get involved, even though this was a case about people spying on Britain for China. So, I mean, I think they're in a real muddle over this. And just to come back to your question, yes, Ed went to Beijing, and unlike all of the times that I did deals with other countries, he has not published the full text of what was agreed. And that is something which I think is incredibly worrying, this air of sort of secrecy around the Labour Party's dealings with China. And I've spoken again very publicly multiple times about the worry that we are building a reliance on China when it comes to our energy system, whether it's solar panels or critical minerals or batteries or cables. We've just seen a position where Europe had to wean itself off Russian oil and gas. We can't then become dependent on China for all of those things. So yes, we have to care very deeply. It's one of the reasons that I'm such a big advocate of nuclear power, because actually we can own and build a lot of the supply chain here. So
I know,
it is
but
very
you could have done nuclear years ago.
Who is a threat to this country?
You could have done nuclear years ago.
So
you're in partnership with Nick Clegg. Nick Clegg's like, oh, we can't do nuclear because it's going to take too long. But anyway, hang on, I want to move on to another question. Well, when it comes to the Prime Minister misleading the Commons, why don't you all put your money where your mouth is and call for his resignation? If you're saying he's lied to the House of Commons, the Prime Minister must resign.
Well, so we have put those questions to Keir. I'm sure there'll be many unhappy at my side to call for the Prime Minister to resign.
Well, will you?
But I don't think that's the challenge. But we have put those questions. Well, I think he needs to be clear about what's happened. And the thing about misleading the House is it's somehow become, under this Labour government, a very trivial thing to do. But it's not. It's a serious matter. And what he's tried to turn this China case into is some sort of political tussle. And it's not. It's a question of national security. And like I said, either he's misled the House because there was political involvement and he's told the House there wasn't, or something which is possibly even worse, is that politicians were aware that this case was going to collapse and they didn't get involved.
OK, so the Prime Minister needs to consider his position very seriously.
Well, I think if he's lied to the House, then yes.
OK, and then on to your own matters. This mega poll putting the Tories on 7 seats. It puts Labour on 3rd place behind the Liberal Democrats, but it suggests that at the next general election, you will be reduced from 121 MPs to 7. Claire Coutinho, how has it come to this?
Well, look, the point of opposition is not only to scrutinise the government, but it's also to look at where you went wrong, and that is the work that's being done. So, one of the things I think that we got wrong, and I've said that very publicly, is we signed up to net zero legislation that we shouldn't have. One of the other areas which Kemi has set up very clearly is we want to back the strivers and the aspirational people in this country. That's why she set out plans to abolish business rates on the high street. That's why she set out plans to cut stamp duty so that people can have an easier time trying to own their home. So the work that we have to do is to look at where we went wrong, and the duty of us, I think, as the Conservative Party, is to make sure that at the next election there is a party on the ballot that people can vote for who are strong on the economy and also strong on borders, and that is what we will work to be.
Good evening, welcome to our latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been quite a damp end to the weekend for many of us, and it's going to stay quite changeable as we head into the new working week as well. Low pressure very much in charge of our weather over the coming days, weather front spiralling around this area of low pressure. And it's this cold front here that's brought us the rain through much of Sunday. That will continue to push its way northwards as we head through Sunday evening. Some drier conditions at first for a time across the southwest. However, plenty of heavy blustery showers spiralling around that area of low pressure, feeding into the southwest, bringing some strong winds, perhaps some coastal gales here as well. Quite a mild start to the morning as well across the very far southwest, temperatures widely in the double figures, and quite a damp start too across parts of Wales and southwest England, with those heavy blustery showers feeding in and pushing their way north and eastwards through Monday morning. We're likely to see some really quite heavy downpours mixed in here. Some hail and thunder can't be ruled out too. However, for parts of Northern Ireland, parts of Northern England, much of Scotland, generally a drier and brighter start to Monday morning. Perhaps a bit of a chillier start too. Temperatures here may be dropping into the low single figures, though the far northeast of Scotland a little bit milder due to that cloud and rain that's still lingering here. That cloud and rain continues to push its way northwards as we go through Monday evening, but it's across much of England and Wales that will continue to see those heavy blustery showers spiralling around that area of low pressure, bringing us some strong winds too. Parts of Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland faring best in terms of any sunshine through the afternoon, and with lighter winds here feeling pleasantly warm in any sunshine. But even in the south, even though temperatures are above average, it won't be feeling particularly pleasant with those showers. Tuesday starts a bit of a mixed picture. Anywhere that we see clear skies, perhaps a little chillier, some mist and fog in places, but showery rain feeding in from the west as we go towards the afternoon, though this generally not quite as heavy as we saw on Monday. It's then a mixed picture as we head through the second half of the week with further rain likely. However, temperatures perhaps turning a little bit colder by the time we get to the end of the week.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Welcome back. Business journalist and presenter Ian King joins me now to talk about all things money-related, the budget coming on November the 26th. How worried should we be, Ian?
Well, the Office for Budget Responsibility has given its initial report to the Chancellor. We don't know what's in it, but the expectation is that there's been a big downgrade in productivity expectations, and that essentially affects the tax take. So if the Chancellor is to stick to her fiscal rules, the expectation is that somewhere between 20 and 30 billion pounds is going to be the number. That's the shortfall. That is what she's going to have to make up via fiscal consolidation. What does that mean in practice? Either tax increases or spending cuts.
And they're not going to cut spending, are they?
Well, the spending envelope is actually pretty tight already. Bear in mind that they've got, there are ring-fenced departments like the NHS. You've got defence, where the government is committed clearly to making big spending increases. That leaves a lot of tightness everywhere else. For example, the Justice Department, the court system, and we know the court system is already buckling after years and years of spending cuts that date all the way back to George Osborne and the early days of the coalition government. And you've got this backlog in the courts due to the pandemic as well.
All gummed up. It's taken months to get any traction there.
And then you've got things like, the benefits bill is clearly the big ticket item.
Yes.
On the current trajectory, sickness benefits are going to hit £100 billion by the end of this Parliament. And we saw earlier in the year the government struggled to get a £5 billion package of cuts through. That wouldn't have actually eaten into the benefits bill. It would have simply slowed down the rate at which it's rising. It wouldn't
really touch the sides. It was amazing. We had this giant debate about, frankly, something so piffling. So you're saying spending constraints are already there, and it's very difficult for a Labour government to cut more because then she'll be accused of austerity. She made that point last week, didn't she? She made two admissions. Yes, we're going to have to consider having a look at taxes. Oh, red alert. Second of all, we don't want to go back to austerity. One woman's austerity is another person's efficiency savings, but they have it. What I don't quite understand about the fiscal discipline argument is, but hasn't borrowing gone up under her watch anyway? So why is she claiming to be fiscally disciplined?
Well, it has. The second biggest single item of government spending right now is interest payments on the national debt. It's servicing the national debt. The point is, you want to try and balance the budget. That is the aim of her fiscal rules by the end of this Parliament. Now, there are all sorts of ways around. Gordon Brown was a sort of past master at fiddling his fiscal rules, and he'd basically just changed the duration of the cycle. He'd say within this current cycle, and then he'd change the dates on it.
The goalposts, basically.
It was like Find the Lady. But I think in fairness to Rachel Reeves, she has shown real adherence to maintaining fiscal discipline in terms of keeping to her fiscal rules. That's very, very important to her. So I think that, in all honesty, does mean probably higher taxes.
Yes. Now, in what form? Because we heard Luke Murphy earlier, the Labour MP for Basingstoke, saying, no, we are sticking to the manifesto pledge of not raising taxes on working people. Of course, Labour don't seem to think that people who employ people are working people. Apparently, these bosses are just swanning around, not doing a day's work. So they're doing this whole thing of saying, well, if income tax, VAT and national insurance doesn't go up for individuals, then we've stuck to the manifesto. But what's your suspicion as to what will really happen?
Well, I think one absolute given. You've already had this freeze in income tax thresholds. First of all, that was Rishi Sunak that did that to add to 2026. Reeves has extended it to 2028. You extend that by another couple of years, that banks you, but probably easily 10 billion on its own.
Right. Fiscally dragging head teachers, doctors, nurses, middle managers into a higher tax band than they should be paying, frankly.
And in your interview with Luke Murphy, you referenced Tony Blair saying that the 40p tax rate, the threshold needs to be changed. But I don't think that's going to happen. So, that's an absolute given. There are other things that she can do. The Institute for Fiscal Studies put out this big piece last week laying out some of the policy options. One thing I'd be quite interested in is the definition of VAT. Now, the UK's VAT regime is very, very narrow compared with a lot of our peers in continental Europe, for example. There are all sorts of things that are zero rated. Children's clothes, for example. Now, that would obviously be pretty explosive if you start levying VAT on children's clothes.
Well, it'd be ridiculous. On one hand, you're brushing their teeth and offering them breakfast in the morning, and the next you're making their clothes more expensive.
Exactly. But if you look at countries like France and Germany, even they have a VAT rate on children's clothes to some extent. It may be negligible. I think the only major European economy that doesn't do that is the Republic of Ireland. So that is something potentially you could look at. You could look at an extra VAT band on luxury goods, for example. I mean, we had that in the 70s, and I mean,
but there'd been such a backlash from the hospitality and retail industry in London against the tourist tax. I mean, this idea that you can go to Rome and buy a Gucci belt for much less than you could buy it in London, and how disadvantageous that is to us from a tourism point of view. So, I mean, you're talking about this growth rate. I think it's interesting that the Chancellor keeps on holding on to this idea that in Q1 or the first half of this year, our growth rate was the best in the G7. Still not great, is it, Ian?
Well, I think there were very specific factors there. You had a lot of front-loading of businesses right around the world in anticipation of Trump's tariffs. You saw a lot of American importers buying in inventory. So for UK manufacturers that export to the United States, you know, car manufacturers, aircraft components manufacturers, the Americans were buying that stuff in anticipation of Trump's tariffs. So I think that flattered the first quarter GDP for an extent. There's also a bit of a trend here. I mean, this happened in 2024 as well. The UK shot out of the blocks in early 2024. We were the fastest growing economy then.
Saying this as well.
Yeah, so there is something funny about the UK in that respect. The numbers for next year and the year after, we obviously had an IMF forecast published this week. Slight upgrade for next year, slight downgrade the year after. I mean, it still puts the UK ahead of everyone else in the G7 apart from Canada.
I know, but there's not much competition, is there? France, 0.9, Germany, 0.9, Italy, 0.8. We're on 1.3. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, is it? When you compare growth rate in America, 2.1 for 2026 forecast.
Yeah, you're basically the second least ugly person.
And why do you think it is that inflation in the UK is higher than all of those aforementioned countries? The inflation forecast 2025, we're 3.4%. Nearest competitors, Japan on 3.3, US on 2.7, etc.
Well, a lot of these are regulatory issues. A lot of these are made by the government and by regulators. I mean, a good example there would be the fact that water bills are going to be going up under the latest Ofwat rulings.
That's another thing we need to pay more for, Ian.
You were talking to Claire Coutinho earlier about household energy bills. I mean, we have all these policy costs. There was all of the energy bosses were in front of the MPs last week, and they all said wholesale energy prices could halve from here and bills would remain the same because we have all these policy costs, some of which, you know, the feed-in tariffs and the green levies and so forth. All of that is a cost. All of that feeds into inflation. VAT on school fees. Again, that had an inflationary impact. So you have all these measures. And you have also there is stickiness in the UK economy anyway. If you look at wages inflation, I mean, wages right now, we get the inflation figures next week. We'll get a readout of probably about 4% for September. That, by the way, has all sorts of implications for the spending envelope because the September inflation figure is what dictates the rise in the state pension.
If you give public sector workers more money for less productivity, it's going to be inflationary, one assumes. Take us inside the square mile. Another remark that the Chancellor made last week, which prompted cries of incredulity from some of the high net worth sector, let's put it that way, was this idea that she suggested that the millionaires' exodus had been overstated. We had that one kind of killer report which suggested that a millionaire was leaving every 45 minutes under Labour. But I speak anecdotally to people in the city, and they say, yes, people are leaving in their droves. They're going to Italy, where they've got much more favourable tax rates.
Yeah, I mean, Italy has rolled out the red carpet to the wealthy. You now have a flat rate of income tax. Basically, if you go to Italy and you're well off, you will pay €200,000 in a flat tax to them, and that's it. There'll be no other taxation on all of your global earnings. Now, there's a report in one of the newspapers this weekend suggests that Italy is going to raise that to €300,000. But even so, that makes it a very attractive place for someone wealthy from, say, the UK to go and base themselves. And I mean, we'll have to wait and see what the OBR says. She's obviously seen something in the OBR's report that caught her eye there. But again, there's another report out today which the Sunday Times is quoting from another consultant who says, where we don't really know what sort of people are leaving. She's probably looking at the income tax take and saying, well, the income tax take doesn't seem to have fallen very dramatically. The point is the sort of people who are leaving are not necessarily people who are paying income tax.
No.
These are investors.
They're
These
people
are
who employ people who pay income tax.
So
If they're taking their businesses abroad, Ian, what can you do?
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello, well, an unsettled picture across the central Mediterranean with heavy showers and thunderstorms and some stronger winds, but some sunshine elsewhere, especially for the Canary Islands, parts of Madeira and Spain and Portugal, with a few showers here, longer spells of rain then across parts of the central Mediterranean. Some of the rain is going to be heavy, causing some localised flooding with flashes of lightning as well and some strong winds, but there will be plenty of sunshine in between as well. We still hold on to a few showers though.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
The author of Charles III, The Inside Story, and the Daily Mail journalist Robert Hardman joins me now. Lovely to see you this morning, Robert. Goodness me, it's been a busy few days for us royal watchers, hasn't it? How significant, just sum up historically how significant the announcement that Prince Andrew made on Friday actually is, that he's relinquishing his titles and is effectively now going to, I don't know, become some kind of private citizen with no royal ties at all?
Yeah, I mean, it is, I think, very significant. I think it's significant for the Duke, ex-Duke, of course. I think we have to go back to 2019. By the way, his statement, I'm not sure about his maths, because in his statement he talked about how he stepped back from public duties 5 years ago, but it was actually 6 years ago. It was 2019, November, when that happened. And I think this is the most significant statement since then. I think also it's significant, the King has made a decisive decision. It can't have been easy.
No.
I think I think it's one of the the most interesting decisions perhaps of this reign. But it's quite clear that the institution comes first, family second. I think the Duke was basically given an ultimatum. It's either we can do this the nice way or the hard way, and if you don't relinquish your titles and honours, then we will take them away. And that would have taken us into really pretty awkward territory, because Parliament would have to get involved to strip him of his dukedom. And as for stripping him of Knight of the Garter, I mean, that involves a rather spectacular and very messy medieval ceremony called degradation. I think the last time it was 1716, when the Garter banner was torn down and kicked into the gutter. The only other time Garter knights have been expunged from the order was because they were actually on the enemy sides in 2 world wars, the last one being Emperor Hirohito of Japan. Now, whatever we say about the Duke of York, one thing we can't accuse him of is treachery or fighting for the other side. He's fought very honourably for his nation, and he thus far has not turned on his family or the institution, hasn't written any embarrassing books. So,
well, there's still time, Robert, there's still time. What do you think was the final nail in the coffin? Because we've got yet more lurid allegations in your sister paper today, the Mail on Sunday, and others, talking about how Epstein bankrolled Fergie, talking about the fact that he put pressure via his own taxpayer-funded bodyguard to try and smear Virginia Roberts-Giuffre, who is one of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's main accusers. She's deceased now. She died by suicide back in April. Obviously, this memoir is being published posthumously next week. Do you think it was just in anticipation of the memoir, or was it the revelation that he had maintained that friendship with Epstein after he said he hadn't to Amelie Maitlis? What do you think was the sort of final straw for the King?
Well, it's interesting. What was the final straw? I mean, clearly this was an accumulation of factors on two fronts. One was the ever louder drip, drip, drip of accusations. And I do think last weekend's Mail on Sunday article, which produced an email, which frankly drove a coach and horses through that Newsnight interview from 2019, because it made it quite clear that when the Duke, ex-Duke, said, he'd severed connections with Jeffrey Epstein in 2010, that was not the case. I think that was a major factor. Then all week we had further, the usual round of sort of Prince Andrew headlines, not least that he was linked to the, in some way, to the collapsed parliamentary spy case. So on the one hand, you've got the Andrew accusations coming through. On the other factor is the distraction, the fact that there were major royal events last week and they simply weren't even getting airtime. I mean, the King embracing Indigenous leaders from Australia, the King announcing that he's off to Rome to pray with the Pope. I mean, no British monarch, no Supreme Governor of the Church of England has knelt and prayed with the Pope in public, I think, ever, but certainly not since Henry VIII. I mean, that should be a very important matter, something the King cares about deeply. And it just, it wasn't breaking through because of the Wall of Andrew noise. Now, I mean, the Andrew allegations are not going to go away, I imagine, in the next few days, because this is the big news. They are going to carry on. But in time, they will subside. They're not going to be any less sensational because he's not called the Duke of York. But I think what people do understand is that, they really do have nothing to do with the King and the working unit of the royal family who are just trying to get on with the job.
So does that mean then, Robert, just to clarify, we shouldn't expect to see Andrew or Sarah Ferguson at any royal events, both sort of state occasions or indeed private ones, in the sense of recently, for instance, they attended the Duchess of Kent's funeral. It wasn't a state funeral, it was a royal funeral. We shouldn't expect to see them, but that their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, may still be included in royal family affairs, for instance, Christmas at Sandringham?
Yeah, I think we certainly. My understanding is that a very key part of this, of the King's sort of planning, was that this should not somehow involve, ripping up the birthright and titles of Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, for whom the King has a great deal of affection.
We've just been playing out, while you've been speaking, Robert, that extraordinary footage of him at the Duchess of Kent's funeral, where he's trying to talk to Prince William, the Prince of Wales. William's having none of it. I was told on Friday that Prince William's fingerprints will have been all over this, that he has got no truck with his errant uncle. And it poses difficulties for Andrew moving forward because, of course, the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales live on the Windsor Great Park estate. So does Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. They're in Royal Lodge. It's a 30-room house. He's holding on to this property for dear life. But I think there's going to be a growing clamour for them both to be evicted from that place.
Well, it's certainly, as is the nature of news, it doesn't like a vacuum. So we very quickly moved on. He's lost his titles. Right, what should he lose next? And I think there's a lot of growing opinion focusing around the house. I mean, yes, the shots you just showed there of that was the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, where we saw, yes, the Duke of York just showing, I think, a sort of a remarkable lack of tact. Marching around in front of the cameras when, frankly, the best place would have been to stand at the back and not look for airtime, as it were. But that's I think that's the sort of what we're dealing with. But in terms of the house, well, he does have a lease on that house, as yes. You and I know, Camilla. I mean, and leasehold law. I mean, he has every much right to stay in that house, as we all do if we own a property, either freehold or leasehold. The one area where there would be grounds for eviction is if he can't maintain either the maintenance bills or the security bills, because that house does come with a certain degree of, it's got to be kept in good condition and it's got to be kept safe. At the moment, he's footing those bills himself. But if suddenly, the roof starts to cave in, there aren't any guards, you start getting graffiti or whatever, then that would be grounds for the Crown Estate, and it is a Crown Estate property. It's not the sort of King's grace and favour. It's not for the King to say, but then the Duke would be in breach of the terms of his lease, and he would be turfed out. Where he goes then is a very good question. But the other issue I'm hearing a lot about is, well, why is he still called Prince? He has had everything he has received in terms of honours since he was born, but I mean that was how he came into this world. And again, I think we have to keep a slight degree of context and nuance here, because however much people might dislike him, to take away the title of Prince. I mean, the last time that happened was involving, as I say, enemies of this country fighting at war. Now he's not in that category. So I think if he could possibly stay away from going for rides around the park on royal horses, that would certainly help in the days ahead.
Robert Hardman, we need to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed. Just to say that Prince Andrew has previously and continues to deny any wrongdoing. On the accusation involving a Met police officer, Andrew declined to comment when approached by the Daily Mail. The Metropolitan Police said that they were looking into the claims.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to our latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It's been quite a damp end to the weekend for many of us. and it's going to stay quite changeable as we head into the new working week as well. Low pressure very much in charge of our weather over the coming days, weather front spiralling around this area of low pressure. And it's this cold front here that's brought us the rain through much of Sunday. That will continue to push its way northwards as we head through Sunday evening. Some drier conditions at first for a time across the southwest. However, plenty of heavy blustery showers spiralling around that area of low pressure, feeding into the southwest, bringing some strong winds, perhaps some coastal gales here as well. Quite a mild start to the morning as well across the very far southwest, temperatures widely in the double figures, and quite a damp start too across parts of Wales and southwest England, with those heavy blustery showers feeding in and pushing their way north and eastwards through Monday morning. We're likely to see some really quite heavy downpours mixed in here. Some hail and thunder can't be ruled out too. However, for parts of Northern Ireland, parts of Northern England, much of Scotland, generally a drier and brighter start to Monday morning. Perhaps a bit of a chillier start too. Temperatures here may be dropping into the low single figures, though the far northeast of Scotland a little bit milder due to that cloud and rain that's still lingering here. That cloud and rain continues to push its way northwards as we go through Monday evening, but it's across much of England and Wales that will continue to see those heavy blustery showers spiralling around that area of low pressure, bringing some strong winds too. Parts of Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland faring best in terms of any sunshine through the afternoon, and with lighter winds here feeling pleasantly warm in any sunshine. But even in the south, even though temperatures are above average, it won't be feeling particularly pleasant with those showers. Tuesday starts a bit of a mixed picture. Anywhere that we see clear skies, perhaps a little chillier, some mist and fog in places, but showery rain feeding in from the west as we go towards the afternoon, though this generally not quite as heavy as we saw on Monday. It's then a mixed picture as we head through the second half of the week with further rain likely. However, temperatures perhaps turning a little bit colder by the time we get to the end of the week.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons, plus you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live, every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. We've got a packed show for you tonight. Has the Islamophobia definition really been scrapped? Is it antagonistic to wear a Star of David in public? And how to respond to the banning of Jewish football fans? And
there is always support for free speech in the abstract, except everybody says, but.
Free Speech Nation has been at the Battle of Ideas Festival. I'll be giving you access to the discussions that sparked the most debate. Plus,
I was not aware of that, no. I'm very sorry.
is trans ideology finally losing its stranglehold on debate? And
what about their legs? They don't need those. Ooh, they look tasty.
is The Lord of the Rings a metaphor for white supremacy? That's just one of the questions me and my fellow comedians will be answering from a live studio audience that are here. But first, the news with Bethany Elsey.
Good evening, I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom at 7 o'clock. The Metropolitan Police says it's looking into a claim that Prince Andrew asked a close protection officer to investigate Virginia Giuffre before she accused him of sexual abuse. Two newspapers are reporting that he asked his bodyguard to dig up dirt for a smear campaign shortly before a photograph of the pair with Ghislaine Maxwell was published in 2011. Andrew gave up his remaining royal titles and honours on Friday over his association with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, although he denies all the allegations against him. Daylight robbery at one of the world's most famous museums. Priceless jewellery has been stolen from the Louvre in Paris. It's understood 3 or 4 masked men broke into the Apollo Gallery, containing what remains of the French crown jewels. French Interior Minister says thieves escaped with 9 pieces from the Napoleon and the Empress collection that are of incalculable value. One item has since been found near the scene of the heist. Israel is to halt the supply of aid into Gaza after accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire. The military says it has carried out airstrikes on Gaza after repeated attacks on its troops by Hamas. But the group claims it remains committed to the peace agreement and is working to locate and return the remaining deceased hostages. 369 migrants crossed the English Channel in small boats on Saturday, bringing the total this year so far to almost 37,000. Meanwhile, the Home Office says 16 illegal migrants have been returned to France under the one-in, one-out scheme. On a single flight this week, 42 people have so far been returned under the new deal. The government is promising to create 400,000 new jobs by the end of the decade by training and recruiting workers for the clean energy sector. Ministers say plumbers, electricians and welders are among the occupations in demand, and that North Sea oil and gas workers will be able to access support to help them transition into the sector. And hundreds of people have turned out for the funeral of the cricket umpire Dickie Bird in his hometown of Barnsley. He died last month at the age of 92. Former England and Yorkshire cricketer Sir Geoffrey Boycott read out his eulogy for his friend of almost 70 years, describing him as the best umpire in the world and very special. And Michael Vaughan says he brought so much joy to the game.
I mean, I remember as a young player just having times of difficulty, not scoring too many runs. I might get 10 or a 12 and he said, "Oh, you're playing great." He'd always tell you that you were playing great. So he had a positive kind of influence on everybody, and obviously that little seat that he has at Headingley, it's going to be void, but we'll give him a great send-off today.
You're up to date. I'll have more for you in an hour's time.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world.